Thank you so much. I will call this meeting of the Senate Natural Resources Committee to order on March 30th of 2021. Will the esteemed secretary please take the roll?
Senator Brooks.
Here.
Senator Goycochea.
Here.
Senator Hansen.
Here.
Vice Chair Scheibel.
Here.
Chair Donate.
Chair Donate is presenting in another committee, but he will be here as soon as he is available, and I will ask you to mark him present at that time, at which point I will also hand over the proverbial gavel. Because Chair Donate is presenting elsewhere, we will not start with our work session today. However, we will probably interrupt our other scheduled programming to do that work session when we have everybody here. In the meantime, it is my pleasure to sit as chair of the committee for now, as we are joined by numerous special guests to present SJR 10. And I will turn it over now to Senator Orenshaw and open up the hearing on SJR 10 to introduce us to our guests and some familiar faces here and to present SJR 10.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Scheibel, Chair Donate, and members of the Senate Natural Resources Committee. For the record, James Orenshaw, I represent State Senate District 21. That's parts of Henderson and unincorporated Clark County. I'm very lucky to have some wonderful co-presenters today with me, so I'll be very brief. There's a painting behind me painted by Cliff Sagerblum, father of our former state senator and now Clark County Commissioner Sagerblum. That painting is Frenchman Mountain, Rainbow Gardens, a lot of the area that's discussed in Senate Joint Resolution 10. That is an area that I believe is a treasure in Southern Nevada and has great potential, but needs more attention in terms of the protection it gets from the federal government. With that, Vice Chair, and with your permission, Commissioner Sagerblum is on a very tight deadline. I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Sagerblum, and then with your permission, Helen Mortensen and Dr. Steve Rowland, who are here to help me co-present, and I'm here to answer any questions if the committee has any. Thank you, Vice Chair Scheibel.
Yes, please go ahead, Commissioner Sagerblum.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Orenshaw and everyone else. I'll be very brief, but I just want to point out that this area, what we call the Great Unconformity, is unprotected at this point. And if you're in Las Vegas, where you are, and in fact you're from the part where I'm going to complain a little about, but in Western Las Vegas they have red rocks, they have all kinds of stuff. But if you live in East Las Vegas, you don't have anything like that. And this area could actually be like red rocks. It's very historic, very geologic. And so it's a very exciting place, and that's what we want in East Las Vegas. We want to have our own state park or some type of protection where our residents can go and not have to drive all the way across the valley. In fact, some people from Summerlin may want to come over there too. So it's a very special place. But thank you so much, Senator Orenshaw, for bringing this to the legislature. I just want to point out Helen Mortensen, who's one of the speakers and most knowledgeable about this area. Her husband, Harry, was an assemblyman when I first got into the legislature, and he and I worked very closely, and James too worked very closely together back then. He was what we call the conscience of the assembly. He always did what was right and was just so honorable and so ethical. He was just a tremendous, tremendous man. So Helen, thank you so much for Harry. Mary, thank you, Senator, so much. And if it's okay, I'll leave.
Well, we hate to see you go, but it was a pleasure to have you with us, Commissioner Sagerblum. Thank you. And we hope to see you again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Senator Orenshaw, who would you like to present next?
Either whoever'd like to go next, either Helen Mortensen or Dr. Steve Rowland. Helen has been a friend of mine for more than 2 decades. I got to know her and her husband, former Assemblyman Harry Mortensen, when he first got elected to the legislature. And Helen and her late husband, former Assemblyman Mortensen, worked very hard to preserve much of the treasures we've got in Ice Age Fossil Park up in the Northwest area. And Dr. Rowland is emeritus professor of geology at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and has just a tremendous knowledge of the area of Frenchman Mountain, Sunrise Mountain, Rainbow Gardens, and has been working on the goal, he and Mrs. Mortensen, of trying to preserve this treasure down in Southern Nevada? Whoever would like to begin.
I'd like Steve Rowland, Dr. Rowland, to begin because he's got the outline of what needs to be done in this area. So I would defer to, and thank you so much, Senator Orenshaw, for this opportunity. Steve and I have been looking forward to this for many, many years. And so we're hoping we're really heading for the finish line on this one. So I defer to Dr. Steve Rowland.
Thank you, Helen. So, and thank you to Senator Orenshaw for submitting this legislation. I could not be more pleased. This is an area that, as Helen just said, she and I and some of our colleagues in the Citizens for Active Management, a grassroots 501c3 group, we've been working intermittently with BLM on management issues, especially on the east side of the valley, for over 25 years. And so it's reassuring, or optimistic at least, that finally we're going to see something happen. So I've been a geology professor at UNLV since 1978. I retired a couple years ago, but I'm still very active. I still have graduate students, and I'm still actively doing research right now. And I can tell you that this area, which is a very neglected parcel of public lands, is literally one of the real jewels of geology in North America. And that sounds like an exaggeration, but it really is not. There's nowhere else on Earth that there's so much geology exposed so accessibly, that it's twice as much geology as the Grand Canyon, literally. So I won't go through all the details, but it's just a phenomenal geologic site that people from all over the world come not only to the Great Unconformity, which is very, very special. The Great Unconformity is at the west base of Frenchman Mountain, where 1.7 billion year old rocks are in contact with 500 million year old rocks. And it's a wonderful place to talk to everybody from school age kids up to graduate students about geologic time and Earth history. So the Great Unconformity is a real jewel, but that's only one aspect of the geology of Frenchman Mountain. The whole history of life on Earth is recorded in the rocks in Frenchman Mountain. On the east side is Rainbow Gardens, which I was under the impression I would be able to show some images, and I sent those images to Senator Orenshaw's legislative assistant, thinking that they would be shown for me, but I don't have them available to show, which is unfortunate, because I could show you some really spectacular images, aerial shots of Rainbow Gardens and cross sections of Frenchman Mountain. So suffice it to say that there's real opportunities there to develop outdoor recreation and outdoor education. There's trails of all level of strenuousness, from a steep trail going to the top of Frenchman Mountain to very gentle trails around the Rainbow Gardens area, very, very scenic. None of those trails are specified with trailheads. There's no covered picnic areas. There's potential for equestrian trails and hiking trails and outdoor geology. None of that has been developed. It's really a very neglected aspect of Southern Nevada public lands. It's all BLM land, so there's no land issues. There's no private land that would have to be bought or negotiated for. So it's a real gem that has been neglected. Helen and I and our colleagues in the Citizens for Active Management developed an interpretive site, a geologic interpretive site at the Great Unconformity back in the 90s, 26 years ago. We had a dedication of a beautiful plaque that I was going to show you an image of, but I'm unable to do that. Senator Harry Reid, Secretary of Interior Bruce Babbitt was there when we dedicated that plaque. It was a glorious day. 2 or 3 years later, it was completely vandalized to the point that the BLM had to remove it. Vandalism is just rampant out there, and the problem is that BLM does not have the law enforcement to protect it. It's an area that really deserves high-level protection, but BLM is just unable to do it. Metro can't do it. So our solution with Senator Orenshaw is to create a special national conservation area or national some sort of national recreation area, national conservation area, so that it has its own management staff and law enforcement, and it can be properly protected. People go out there and throw bottles, and so there's broken glass all over the place. Outdoor Nevada and CAM have done cleanups, which has been great. But we just can't do it. We just can't keep up with the graffiti, with the vandalism, with the broken glass. So it really needs a higher level of protection. And so I'm very grateful for Senator Orenshaw for submitting this proposed legislation. And with that, I'll turn it over to my friend and colleague, Helen Mortensen.
Helen, you're muted.
Ms. Mortensen, we still can't hear you. It looks
Sorry.
You're muted.
there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
What about this right here? Okay, give us 1 second, we'll get it corrected.
All right, you're good.
Okay, very good. This area is internationally known. My husband's uncle in Norway, Herlof Mortensen, came out here in 1939 to see the great unconformity right where it was, which is amazing how many people from Europe come to study this unusual formation. It's extremely important, extremely rare. You can see part of it down in the Grand Canyon, but to get to the Grand Canyon and to get to that spot is really unavoidable. Here you've got a roadside turnoff here. We used to have the school buses actually stop and go over and touch the great unconformity, the line between the 1.7 billion years and 5 billion years, and it separates the ages. And as you go westward, upward on the mountain, you see the oh, hand me that for a second. Yeah. Oh, this one right here. This is what I want to shoot. You can see the ages of the animals and everything on this all the way up from Precambrian all the way up that way. So it's just amazing what we have here. A world-class feature. And it's something that Steve Rowland has worked so hard to promote and open up to everybody. But any well-known geologist knows of this location. And the fact that it's right here on the edge of our valley is tremendously important. And the fact that the people don't recognize it, it's not protected. It needs to have federal protection. I would suggest that the Park Service come in. They have the, going up to Lake Mead, you have to go, and the Park Service is the closest people to this area. Also, the Park Service will work with the Gypsum Cave, but this great unconformity is a very unique feature that we have nowhere else. The Las Vegas Valley has developed beautifully on the west side with the Red Rock Canyon. The north side with the new Tule Springs Park Service, the fossil site out there. On the west side, on the east side, where the Frenchman's Mountain, the Sunrise Mountain, and so forth occurs, there's no protection at all. People go up there and throw up trash. We had a cleanup from the outside Las Vegas, sponsored by REI, the day after Thanksgiving in 2020. We had 100 people show up. REI paid them a grant to work on Friday, their day off, to service this community. We had over 100 people from Colorado, Arizona, and everywhere to clean up tons and tons and tons of mass out there. And it's constantly keeping. Steve and I have established to adopt the highway. We try to keep it, up that way. So with the Department of Transportation, we've done an awful lot, and we were recognized through the schools and everything. Take Pride in America back about 10 years ago when we went back to Washington, D.C. And Tom Hickey and all of us are very instrumental in starting this whole nonprofit organization back in 1993. And we've been working ever since. The Great Unconformity is the biggest feature that really needs to be saved, but you've got the Rainbow Gardens. You've got other features in this area. This is a place where people can go and enjoy, but also observe something very unique that's not found anywhere else in the world. And I think I really, this is just absolutely so fantastic. This bill that you put in, James, the SJR 10, it's really a leg up, and Steve and I are so appreciative of that. Steve has wrote management plans for this area and so forth. He is our key person. He is our president. He is our spokesman. But this area needs to be saved. One last thing. National Geographic came out with the Adventure magazine. It was one of their last issues. September 2007. Live and Play Now. Guess what? 50 states were chosen to get their top recreational values and everything on it. Out of Nevada, Las Vegas, Nevada, our own area right here, not only got the top location in Nevada, but also got the first in the nation. And that was because, let me turn to the page real quick here. Come on. I thought I had it marked. Real quick here. Anyway, what it is, it's, darn it. Sorry about that. Get it right here. Thought I had it. Slip a paper in there. I don't. All right, give me a hand here. Just hold on. Yeah, there we go. Okay. In the magazine, it's called the Vegas Draw, and it shows why we are the top one in the nation. This creates, here's the page I want to show you. On this map, you've got a circle there. Within 200 plus miles from our airport in Las Vegas, you have got Zion, Death Valley, Grand Canyon, all kinds of national monuments and places. This is the place to start. We also have the infrastructure to support that. With all our hotels and everything, we can support people to come in, spend the night at one of the hotels, do a little gaming, whatever, and then go out and explore the next morning to all these wonderful places. That is why we're number one in the nation. What we're looking at right now also is a new type of revenue. We're looking at the outdoors, the bikers, the hikers, the people that do bouldering, astronomy club. All these people can enjoy all of this right here. It's building a new industry. This is why it's so important to recognize this one unique place that we got on the east side of the valley who has not had the proper attention or recognition or support. But it adds to this whole bunch of other people here. So it's really important for this. And Steve really has all the particulars about the Great Unconformity and everything. And we give lectures out there and so forth. But the pandemic's helped, and so we deeply appreciate James Orenshaw for taking this up. And when I talk about Gypsum Cave, that's part of this 44,000 acre piece of land. It is very significant in the fact that it, as I explained to the audience before this testimony, that in Gypsum Cave, which was excavated by Mark Harrington in 1930, they found painted atl darts, Indian artifacts. And guess what? Nellis Air Force Base with DRI had an expedition to go out with Andrew Barton out to, oh good Lord, what's the name of it, please? It's a place out on Air Force land. And they found painted as about 65 miles north of and west of the Gypsum Cave, and they Pint Water Cave. That's what it's called. Sorry. Anyway, they found exactly the same type of atlatl darts with the paints on them, and the same pattern on them. So that's the archaeology evidence that shows there is archaeology out there to support the new Tule Springs thing. And the Ice Age animals that are in the cave, the sloth, the camel, and the horse. And the camel and the horse were developed here, you know. So this is a huge part of this 44,000 acres. The Native Americans will worship that cave. They have what they call the salt songs. Native Americans from 4 states, from Utah, California, Arizona, and Nevada, all come up here to do their rituals in the cave, Gypsum Cave. It's a huge cave with 4 rooms in it. They did a marvelous job of excavating it back in 1930. Documented it all at the Southwest Museum. Took all the artifacts to the Southwest Museum because we didn't have anything that could take care of it here in Nevada. And Ann DuBarton from Desert Research Center, I asked Colleen Beck, the director, if I could sponsor her trip down to Southwest Museum. And so she got a $500 stipend for taking her down and housing her for 3 days. I was to go with her. We talked to the Braun Library. Tim Walters handed us all these pictures and reports and everything. We talked to George and up at the curation. We got pictures of all the artifacts from Gypsum Cave. We brought that all home. And when BLM decided to have another power line to go through near Gypsum Cave, through that area, we handed to Amy Gilreath of Far Western. She was doing the mitigations at Gypsum Cave. She went down with that information we gave her to Southwest Museum. Southwest Museum allowed her to take the artifacts and information up to Davis University. And then Amy took them over to Eugene Atari, head of anthropology in the State Museum. So that's where the artifacts lay with the State Museum. There are many questions to be answered about it. There were selenite crystals on thongs that are wrapped around the neck. We have no idea if that has something to do with the music or not. There were found 3 flutes, 3 Indian-made flutes in there in the cave also. So we were just playing with all kinds of ideas. But Gypsum Cave belongs attached to the Tule Springs New National Monument or attached to this. And I think the Native Americans would have a lovely thing to say. I'm way over my time. I'm sorry. But anyway, we appreciate it. But defer to Steve. He's the one that really, the biggest thing is that great unconformity. It's very unique. It is very a world-class thing, and we should recognize it. And as we adventure our whole way through the state, we find that we have many unique features, and we definitely want them to stay and have people come and visit them. And we already do, but we'd like to have a more protection for those sites. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mortensen. Thank you. That was fascinating. It was informative. And I now have to turn the gavel back over to Chair Donate for any other presenters, and if there are no more presenters, to go to testimony.
Thank you, Vice Chair Scheibel. Senator Orenschall, did you have any other last minute comments before we move on to testimony at this time?
I want to thank Helen Mortensen and Dr. Steve Rowland for being here. Again, there are many treasures up there with Sunrise Mountain, Frenchman Mountain, Rainbow Gardens, natural beauty. Gypsum Cave is important both as a cultural site and archaeologically, paleontologically, in terms of the treasures there. And unfortunately, it's not being protected now. The Great Unconformity is of just tremendous significance to geologists. There are tremendous opportunities in that area for not only for learning, for science, for recreation, but for things that need to be preserved. And I do thank you, Chair, for giving us this time. And there are no more presenters, I believe, who want to present on video. So thank you for the time for the presentation.
Thank you, Senator. Do we have any questions from the committee members before we proceed to testimony at this time? I don't see any. All right. Let's go ahead and proceed to testimony. Before we go to the phone lines to continue testimony, I just want to mention that as a reminder, we will be limiting all testifiers to 2 minutes each. Testifiers are encouraged to summarize their positions and submit more comprehensive testimony in writing. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to provide support testimony for SJR 10?
Thank you so much, Chair. To testify in support on Senate Joint Resolution 10, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 666. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Chair Donate, members of the committee. My name is Warren Hardy, W-A-R-R-E-N, last name Hardy, H-A-R-D-Y. I'm testifying today for myself. I am a resident of Sunrise Mountain and have been for many, many years. It was so delightful for me to hear from Mrs. Mortensen, who I had the pleasure of serving with her husband while I served in the Senate, and he was a brilliant scientist. And I'm so delighted to hear that she has not given up his quest to convince everybody that the correct pronunciation of the state is Nevada. And so I'm with Senator Mortensen on that, and I'm so glad to see that Mrs. Mortensen hasn't given up that endeavor. I first learned about the Great Unconformity while I was at UNLV, but my entire life I've spent recreating on that mountain. I've hiked up to the top of that to the saddle, as we used to call it, with Boy Scouts. I've taken the Boy Scouts to the Gypsum Cave. I spend many hours. In fact, yesterday I was out at Rainbow Gardens. I spend time at Lava Butte. I recreate there, and I would offer to the committee, anybody who has not been out there to see Lava Butte, come on over. I'll take you out in my Jeep. It's one of the most beautiful places in the country, and certainly in Nevada. So I do use that area. That currently the registered vehicles are permitted out there on the trails, on the roads, and we need to keep it that way. I do take my daughter and my family out there on our ATVs, and we need to have a designated trail. I think most people are very respectful of that. But just yesterday, it broke my heart. I was out there in my Jeep and trash everywhere. This protection is very, very needed. It is a phenomenal recreation area for the residents of the east side of the valley. Enjoyed it for many, many years, and we need to provide the protections that are necessary to make sure it's preserved for further generations. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to drone on a little bit, but I wanted to lend my support to this resolution. Thank you.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 445. Please press star 6 to unmute. Thank you, caller with the last 3 digits, 445. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Oh, hello. My name is Teresa Crawford, Teresa, CRAW, F as in Frank, ORD, volunteer member of the Sierra Club. And on behalf of the club and our more than 40,000 members and supporters statewide, we speak in strong support of SJR 10. Thank you so much, Senator Orenshaw, for bringing it, and for all your co-sponsors, and especially to Helen Mortensen, whom I met in the past during the lead up in the campaign, Protectors of Tule Springs, and what a happy day when it finally received its national monument status. And we look forward to a happy day for Frenchman Sunrise also. I see it. I can see it. I just was looking at it from my patio in Henderson. So I consider these the iconic sentinels of the East Valley, with unparalleled opportunities for solitude views, hiking photography, an intro to our valley's geology, and the sheer joy of exploration. In researching to speak today, I reviewed Dr. Rowland's amazing website, very comprehensive with charts and maps about the Great Unconformity and other special areas of interest in Sunrise Frenchman Mountain. I think the opportunity for education and ecotourism are amazing here in our valley, and this would just only add to it. I love the Pleistocene mammals and the giant Shasta ground sloth, and somebody sent me a fact that it was a pollinator for Joshua tree seeds, which is, you know, the foundation of our landscape. I do want to point out the bear paw poppy populations and the fact that the Gypsum Cave, as Mrs. Mortensen mentioned, it really is a place of great religious and cultural significance to the Southern Paiutes. It extends to this day. And a major principle of the Sierra Club is to respect and honor and conserve and preserve native sites whenever possible. And this is really important to keep the vandalism away and the disrespect away from it. Also, the goal of protecting 30% of public lands by 2030 and waters is really important, and this designation would certainly add to that. I'm a lifelong hiker and outdoors lover, and just really grateful to the likes of Mrs. Mortensen and Dr. Rowland who've come before me.
Thank you for coming.
And the decades of hard work deserve to be rewarded by a federal designation. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 648. Please press *6 now to unmute. Thank you. Caller with the last three digits, 648. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, my name is Bill Curran. I'm a lawyer with a large private firm, but I appear today or speak today not on behalf of my firm or any client, paid or unpaid, or the firm itself. I got to Southern Nevada in 1974, and I can remember my first visit and early visits to Red Rock Canyon, where I was advised to fill up my tank with gas and pack a lunch before I headed out there, and that's what I used to do. I am not an environmental hardliner, although I'm very sensitive to environmental issues. I was one of the founders with Thalia Dondero of the group outside Las Vegas. But I speak just as a parent and grandparent now about concern for our desert heritage and viewing opportunities. Red Rock now has announced that the old Bonnie Springs Ranch has been transferred to ownership that is going to put residential development there. I think that is a big loss to our community, and I fear the same kind of residential or commercial development in the areas that are subject to the proposal before you today. I've been to the Gypsum Cave. I wasn't aware of the National Geographic story that Helen Mortensen talked about in 2007, but I know when I was a kid growing up in the Midwest, there was a National Geographic story about the Great Sloth. And it was probably the first introduction I ever had to a place called Nevada. The green felt jungle meant nothing to me, but the Great Sloth, the giant sloth, was something of great interest to me and all the other of my fellow students. I just think that for the unique nature of our community and the opportunities for not only the Gypsum Cave, where I've been to ceremonies, Native American ceremonies.
Thank you for coming your 2 minutes are up.
I urge your support. I'll let it go at that.
Caller with the last three digits, 155. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christy Cabrera, CHRASTI-CABRERA, and I'm the Policy and Advocacy Director for the Nevada Conservation League here in support of SJR 10. Sunrise Mountain, Frenchman Mountain, and Rainbow Gardens are unique and remarkable areas and are worthy of protection and federal designation. As you've heard, these areas are home to historic sites, hold significance for our Indigenous communities, and have ample opportunities for outdoor recreation. Nevada's lands and open spaces have become even more important during the COVID-19 pandemic, with families seeking solace in the outdoors for recreational opportunities and health benefits, affirming the connection between our land's health and our economy and our community's health. It's important that we protect these important spaces, that they're available for future generations, and we strongly urge the committee's support on this resolution. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 792. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
This is Patrick Donnelly, PatrickDonnelly. I'm Nevada State Director with the Center for Biological Diversity. We are speaking today in support of SJR 10, but we would caution that the devil is in the details. On the protective side, I would say I've enjoyed recreating in these areas, especially when I lived in East Las Vegas, but the center's primary interest in this area is because it is vital, essential habitat for the persistence and recovery of the imperiled Las Vegas bear poppy, a native wildflower. Rainbow Gardens in particular is one of the most important remaining habitats for this very rare plant. My organization submitted a petition to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in 2019 to protect the Las Vegas bear poppy under the Endangered Species Act, owing to the alarming loss of habitat and population it has experienced over the past several decades. And last year, that petition advanced to the second stage of evaluation for Endangered Species Act protections. So protecting Frenchman Mountain and Rainbow Gardens area would provide important protections for the Las Vegas bear poppy. However, the word of caution, the protection this place needs is from people, many of whom are to use the area for recreation. The area appears to be suffering from overuse, and it's entirely likely that a campaign to see the area put under a protective designation will serve to further drive users to the area. If a protective designation is not accompanied by a substantial increase in resources for the Bureau of Land Management for planning, education, and law enforcement, such a designation could be counterproductive to conservation. So certainly we support SJR 10. We really want to see Rainbow Gardens permanently protected, but we also want to sound the caution that more and more designations without accompanying allocations of federal dollars for increased management could have counterproductive impacts. Thank you for your time.
Caller with the last three digits of 139. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Donate. This is Misty Grimmer representing myself. And I didn't realize this bill was on the agenda, but I'm happy to see it there, and I strongly support this. We spend a lot of time out at Rainbow Gardens doing a lot of hiking around that area. and the whole area around Lake Mead. But I would echo the comments of Mr. Hardy that it's a heartbreak to drive out around Rainbow Garden and see the way that so many people have essentially used it as a trash dump, unfortunately. So we strongly support the protection of that area and also support Mr. Donnelly's comments that any request in conjunction with this does need to come with a funding request, because BLM is spread way too thin to protect all of our precious areas around Las Vegas. So I support this and also support having BLM get more funding to actually do the protection. Thank you so much.
As a reminder, we are currently on support testimony on Senate Joint Resolution 10. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you, BPS. Next, we will hear testimony in opposition.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition on Senate Joint Resolution 10, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, we are currently in opposition testimony on Senate Joint Resolution 10. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in opposition, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you, BPS. Anyone wishing to testify in neutral on this bill?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on Senate Joint Resolution 10, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, we are currently on neutral testimony on Senate Joint Resolution 10. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in neutral, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you, BPS. Senator Orenshaw, do you have any last-minute remarks?
Chair Donate, members of the Senate Natural Resources Committee, thank you very much for hearing Senate Joint Resolution 10. I want to thank Helen Mortensen and Dr. Rowland and Bill Curran, who spoke. The idea for Senate Joint Resolution 10 actually came out of a conversation I had many, many years ago with my friend, the late State Senator Tom Hickey, who represented that area. It was an idea he had, and I think it's got tremendous potential and would be such a benefit not only to protect that area, but to our community if this were to pass and if the federal government were to acknowledge Nevada's request and try to protect this treasure, because there are treasures in our backyards, but unfortunately, the level of protection here is just not living up to the kind of treasures we have there. And from what I understand, reading the history of Red Rock Canyon, you go back 40, 50 years ago, people would dump old cars at Red Rock Canyon and use them for target practice and do a lot of dumping there. And there were a lot of problems there till the federal government increased the protections for Red Rock Canyon, and it's become the treasure we have. I believe the same potential exists there in this treasure here on the eastern side of our valley between the metropolitan areas of Las Vegas, unincorporated Clark County, Henderson, and Lake Mead. I thank the committee for its time, and I hope the committee will consider moving on this bill.
Thank you so much, Senator, for those closing remarks. Before I close this hearing, I just wanted to share really quick that I was really excited to hear this legislation come forward. Many people don't know, unless if I've mentioned it to you specifically, but I went to East Korean Technical Academy, which is literally on Sunrise Mountain. So I spent many, many years acknowledging the sunrise and the sunset when I was there for high school, and also chasing the soccer balls once they went over the gate into Sunrise Mountain. So thank you again, Senator, for bringing this forward, and I look forward to seeing this bill move forward. So at this time, I will go ahead and close the hearing on SGR. Before I close the hearing, Senator Hansen, do you have a question or?
Yeah, Action Chair, we're going to have a work session. Everybody's in support of this bill. I would suggest that we might move it into the work session. We're getting a little late in the session. If they want to get this thing onto the floor and moved out of the house as quick as we can. And so I would just make that suggestion.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. I would like to, if my intention is usually just to wait a little bit, but I'd be more than willing to put this on the agenda for Thursday if that's something that the committee is looking forward to do, since we will be having a work session on Thursday. So I think that's probably the best stuff that we can do, just in case if any issues come up. But thank you for that suggestion, Senator Hansen. Okay, I will go ahead and close the hearing on SJR 10. Again, the committee will not be taking any action on SJR 10. But it will bring it back for a future work session. Before we proceed to Senate Bill 349, we're going to go back in order to some of the work session documents that we were going to do. So I would like to remind everyone that we will not be taking testimony at the work session. However, I may call on someone as necessary to answer questions from committee members. I believe we are still waiting for Senator Settlemyer to come on for SB 125, so we can proceed with other bills. So let's go ahead and proceed with SB 34. So Ms. Rudy, please proceed when you are ready to discuss the various changes relating to agriculture.
Thank you, Chair Donate. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. Senate Bill 34 renames existing personnel of the State Department of Agriculture charged with enforcing certain laws as agricultural police officers and authorizes the director of the department to appoint such officers. The bill increases the minimum requirement of certification to qualify for these positions from a Category 2 to a Category 1 peace officer. The bill makes applicable to agricultural police officers the industrial insurance coverage for police officers, exemption from service as grand or trial jurors, the compensation for police officers with temporary disabilities, and eligibility for certain programs of group insurance or other medical or hospital service for the surviving spouse or any child of police officers and firefighters. Finally, the bill clarifies that brand inspections must be completed visually. There is an amendment attached to the work session document, and it is proposed by the Senate Committee on Natural Resources to correct the unintended inclusion of Chapter 585 of the NRS in Sections 1 and 11, and to add the definition for agricultural police officer to Chapter 566 of the NRS. And that is, there was one fiscal note on this, and I believe that was from the Risk Management Division. I know this is a policy committee, but I will mention that. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rudy. Do any committee members have any questions? We have Doug Ferris, Administrator of Animal Industry Division of the State Department of Agriculture, present to answer any of your questions before we proceed. Senator Goycochea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and probably this question is for you as much as anyone. There is a fiscal note. Will this bill go to finance, or is?
Thank you so much, Senator Goycochea. Considering the amount of the fiscal note provided by Risk Management, that is my inclination, and I hope that that is something that does get pulled into finance. There is question as to whether or not we want to amend, do pass, and refer to finance at this time, or we can just wait until it gets pulled on the floor. But that's the inclination that I hope we do for SB 34, just to make sure that it goes through that process.
In that case, I would make a motion to amend, do pass, and re-refer to finance.
Thank you, Vice Chair Scheibel, for that motion. Do we have any other questions before we proceed with this motion? I don't see any. So do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Senator Brooks. Okay, is there any discussion on that motion on SB 34? Senator Hansen.
Senator Goycochea here. I will.
Senator Goycochea.
I'm sorry, I should have waited first. Yeah, I'll support the motion as long as it's going to finance. I still have some concerns about how we're going to fund this. Thank you. And I know this is the policy committee, but I'm looking forward to talking to Mr. Brooks again.
Thank you, Senator Goycochea. Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be voting no on this. I just don't think they presented enough evidence that we need to expand a group of law enforcement people in rural Nevada. So that's my concern. It's not that the bill is bad, and I'm glad it's going to finance. But again, I'm uncomfortable with this constant expansion of law enforcement in areas where they didn't justify the need. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Mr. Ferris, did you want to chime in really quick just on the implications of if this bill does not pass forward? I'd like to give you the ability to answer that before we take a vote.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Doug Ferris. I'm the Administrator for Animal Industry Division for the Department of Agriculture. And I would just follow up with that. I think some of the implications that we foresee if we do not move forward, or if this bill were to not move forward, is just the continual hiring and training and then loss of staff in these law enforcement positions, or the possibility of extended periods. As I know I mentioned before in previous meetings, that we went over 2 years without a law enforcement officer in the Elko area. And we currently have a vacancy in our Ely area. So I know our concern is without this parity, we're going to continue down this road of either hiring staff and losing them because they can go to another agency and have the benefits afforded to them as the other law enforcement officers do, or just having extended periods of vacancy without having new officers coming on board.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Any other last minute remarks before we proceed to the roll call vote? Seeing none, will the secretary please proceed to call the roll?
Senator Brooks.
Yes.
Senator Goycochea.
Yes.
Senator Hansen.
No.
Senator Scheibel.
Yes.
Chair Donate.
And I am a yes. So the motion carries to amend, do pass, and re-refer this bill to the Senate Committee on Finance. Great. All right. Let's proceed. Since we have Senator Settlemyer, let's go ahead and move to SB 125, which revises provisions relating to falconry. Our policy analyst, Jennifer Rudy, please go ahead and walk us through the work session.
Thank you, Chair Donate. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. And as LCB staff, I can either advocate for or oppose legislation. Your nonpartisan staff, Senate Bill 125 requires any person who wishes to transport, possess, or use a golden eagle in falconry to obtain a falconry license from the Department of Wildlife. Any applicant for such license must provide documentation satisfactory to the department to show that the applicant satisfies the conditions set forth in the federal regulations enacted pursuant to the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. The golden eagle was taken pursuant to a permit issued in accordance with existing state law, and the taking complied with federal law. Such a falconry license is deemed to be the permit to possess a golden eagle required by federal regulations. There is an amendment attached to the work session document, and the attached amendment incorporates the proposed changes from Nevada's Department of Wildlife with certain modifications. It clarifies that a person is prohibited from taking any golden eagles, newly hatched eaglets, or eagle eggs from the wild in this state, except for certain circumstances. The Board of Wildlife Commissioners must adopt regulations to establish civil penalties to be imposed against any person who violates such a prohibition. The amendment clarifies that a person may possess a golden eagle in Nevada only if the golden eagle was taken from the wild in Nevada for the rehabilitation of the golden eagle in another state pursuant to that state's laws and federal laws, if a master falconer is moving to Nevada and legally possesses the golden eagle in their state of origin or has transferred a golden eagle from another licensed falconer. The Board of Wildlife Commissioners may adopt regulations that provide for a person who possesses a golden eagle pursuant to the provisions above to transport, transfer, possess, or use the golden eagle for falconry. If the Commission adopts such regulations, the Department shall require the person to obtain a falconry license and an eagle permit. The Commission shall adopt regulations to establish requirements for a master falconer to obtain a golden eagle permit and civil penalties to be imposed against any person, firm, company, corporation, or association that violates the provisions related to taking golden eagles, newly hatched eaglets, or eagle eggs. And there was a fiscal note on this, and I believe it was a zero fiscal impact from the Department of Wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rudy. Are there any questions from the committee members at this time? Senator Hansen.
I just want to double check. This is considered a friendly amendment?
And we have Senator Settlemyre to answer that question. Please.
Yes, thank you, Chair Donate. I appreciate that, and thank you for the question, Senator Hansen. This amendment addresses the concerns that are necessary in order to get the bill moving forward, and I've talked to the individuals within the industry. They're supportive of it, and NDOW was also the person who has to craft the regulations, so it was important to make sure that their issues and concerns were addressed also. So yes, it is friendly.
Thank you, Senator Settlemyre. Senator Hansen, any other questions, or you good?
I'm fine, thank you, Chair.
All right. Senator Goycochea, looks like you were going to ask a question.
Not a question. I'll offer a motion to amend and do pass.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
Second.
Looks like it was seconded by Senator Hansen. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the secretary please proceed to call the roll call vote?
Senator Brooks,
Yes.
Senator Goycochea,
Yes.
Senator Hansen,
Yes.
Senator Scheibel,
Yes.
Chair Donate.
And I am a yes. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. With SB 34, I will go ahead and take care of the floor statement. Last but not least, we have SB 54. So, Ms. Rudy, please proceed when you are ready to discuss SB 54, which revises provisions relating to the State Board of Agriculture.
Thank you, Chair Donate. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. Senate Bill 54. So this bill was heard on February 23rd, and as it was heard, the work session document contains a summary of the bill as it was introduced. The amendment that is attached also includes a one-page slide with a green border on the top and a blue border on the bottom that really helps to understand what the amendment is doing with these members, because it is changing the membership further from the bill as introduced. As introduced, the bill was going to keep the membership at 11 members, but with this amendment, if it's okay with the chair, I will go ahead and speak to the amendment. Okay. The amendment that is attached was submitted subsequent to the hearing of the bill by the Director of the State Department of Agriculture in lieu of certain amendments presented at the hearing on February 23rd by the Chair of the State Board of Agriculture, the Executive Vice President of the Nevada Farm Bureau Federation, and the Nevada Veterinary Medical Association. But the attached amendment increases the number of members of the board from 11 to 13. And the amendment provides for the bill as introduced was going to eliminate 3 members engaged in range or semi-range cattle production and 1 member engaged in range or semi-range sheep production, and replace them with 2 members in livestock production and then 2 new members, 1 who is working in the field of supplemental nutrition distribution and 1 who is actively engaged in food manufacturing or animal processing. The amendment now is going to retain one of those the one sheep producer, going to retain one of the 3 cattle producers. And then the 2 other cattle producer positions will now be livestock produce. One will be a livestock producer, and one will be a member who has veterinary experience in a mixed animal or large animal practice and is licensed in the state of Nevada as a licensed veterinarian. It will, however, keep those 2 new positions, the one in the field of supplemental nutrition distribution and the one actively engaged in food manufacturing or animal processing. Then the member engaged in growing row crops, space to permit mechanical cultivation, and the member engaged in general farming will now be 2 members engaged in growing crops, at least one of which is a specialty crop harvested by mechanical cultivation. The section 2 in the bill as introduced does not change. That is each member who is serving on the State Board of Agriculture on June 30th, 2020 will continue to serve until the expiration of his or her term or until a vacancy occurs, whichever occurs first. The governor is required to appoint the members representing supplemental nutrition distribution and food manufacturing or animal processing to terms commencing on July 1, 2022. The one provision where it says the measure further requires that the 2 members who are actively engaged in livestock production and the 2 members who are actively engaged in growing crops must be residents from different counties. That is eliminated in this amendment. Hopefully that didn't completely confuse everybody. That's why I really like the visual aid that the Department of Agriculture provided to see what was introduced and what is now included in the amendment. If you have any questions, please let me know. Jennifer Ott is also on the Zoom, I believe. Thank you.
Rudy, do we have any questions from the committee members? Let's start with Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Chair. What's the total number now on this board? Is it 9, 11, 13? I'm sorry, I can't hear any.
It will be increasing from 11 to 13. It's currently 11. Thank you, Senator Hansen. It's currently 11, and with this amendment, it would be increasing by 2 members, so it would be a 13-member board.
I got it. And did the existing Ag Board have a chance to review the amendment, and do you know if they approved it or not?
Thank you, Senator Hansen, for that question. I will defer to Director Ott, who's also on this, to answer that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is Jennifer Ott from the Director of the Department of Agriculture. There has not been a board meeting and as a board to approve this amendment, but I worked through this amendment with the chairman of the board and he is happy with it.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Any other last-minute questions before we proceed? Okay, I don't see any. Do I have Senator Goicoechea?
We had an additional amendment from the Farm Bureau. Is that going to be considered in this?
Thank you for that question, Senator Goicoechea. And we also have Alan Amburn, if he can chime in on this. That is not something that's reflected, from my understanding, in this amendment. I'd like to maybe either our legal counsel, Mr. Alan Amber, to discuss further, or we can have Director Ott as well. So,
Alan Amber, for the record, this proposed amendment from the department does not reflect that amendment from the Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Mr. Allenberg, and to the chair. I will oppose this motion or this bill then, because we have failed to address that key issue in my mind, and that is the duties of the Ag Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Goicoechea. Director, I have a quick question following up that. What has been the conversations that you've had since the hearing was conducted and what the proposed amendment does? Can you provide some broad oversight on that, just so that for our understanding before we proceed?
Sure, I'm happy to. Jennifer Ott, Director of the Department of Agriculture, for the record.
Yes, I've had several conversations on this bill and this amendment. The language reflecting the veterinary experience came out of my conversations with and I apologize if I don't get the name of the association perfectly proper, but the Veterinary Medical Association. I had conversations with them and they helped me with that language to make sure that a vet experience is retained on the board. I had conversations again with the chairman of the Board of Agriculture on this amendment. I had also reached out to the Farm Bureau. We did not discuss their amendment as it was not part of this conversation. They knew it was coming to work session, and there was sort of it's coming to work session, and so there wasn't really any further discussion on it. I had a conversation with the governor's office, who the governor does appoint these members, and they are okay with the amendment. So that's pretty much the recap of the conversations that I've had.
Thank you so much, Director. Any other questions before we proceed? Okay, I don't see any. Seeing no more questions, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to amend and do pass SB 54.
So moved by Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Senator Scheibel. And do I have a second?
Second, Senator Brooks.
Seconded by Senator Brooks. Is there any discussion on the motion? Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Chair. I'm concerned about the growth of the size of the board. You start getting boards up to 13 members, their ability to function declines. I'm also concerned about a slow dilution of the intent of the board. The ag component seems to be becoming less of a significant majority. And I think the intent of the ag board is to deal with ag things, just like wildlife commission boards about wildlife and contractors boards about contracting. And I see a definite drift in this. And so I'm going to be a no. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Senator Goycochea, looked like you wanted to say something.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I am not as concerned about the makeup of the ag board. Surely that, if that's the will of the committee, but again, I think as we move to 13 members, it does spread it out. The ag board is a board that is set somewhat different in statute, and I'm afraid that we are moving away from being governed by an ag board to be creating an advisory board that probably won't lead us in the direction we want to go. So I'm definitely opposed to it. I would like to see some language that outlines the duties of this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Goycochea. Any other last minute remarks? I don't see none, but I just want to mention that Director, I do look forward to working with you and the Nevada Farm Bureau on addressing any concerns that were brought up from their amendment and seeing how that conversation continues on beyond this legislation. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. So will the Secretary at this time please go ahead and proceed to call the roll call vote.
Senator Brooks.
Yes.
Senator Goycochea.
No.
Senator Hansen.
No.
Senator Scheibel.
Yes.
Chair Donate.
And I am a yes. The motion carries. And with the permission, I will go ahead and assign this floor statement to Vice Chair Scheibel, if that's fine. And I didn't mention SB 125, but SB 125 will be assigned to Senator Settlemeyer for the floor statement. Okay. Thank you, committee, for helping with that work session. We can go ahead and proceed with our last agenda item, which is Senate Bill 349. I will go ahead and open the hearing on SB 349. This measure revises provisions relating to public health. There are 4 presenters, from my understanding, for SB 49. So we have Senator Orenshaw, Michael DeLee, Jessica Clark, and Angela O'Callahan. So Senator Orenshaw, please proceed when you are ready.
Thank you very much, Chair Donate and members of the Senate Committee on Natural Resources. Again, for the record, James Orenshaw, I represent State Senate District 21. That's parts of Henderson and unincorporated Clark County. Thank you for hearing Senate Bill 349 today. And I do, as you said, Chair, I do have co-presenters. And if, with your indulgence, Chair, I'd like to turn it over to, well, I have a brief intro. With your indulgence, I'd like to turn it over to my co-presenters. And then I'd like to answer any questions. I have Dr. Angelo Callahan, I have Jessica Clark, I have Cody Witt, Dr. Stephen Andraki, and Mr. Michael DeLee. Senate Bill 349 looks like a very complicated bill, and I could be real brief as to the genesis of it. I'm a proud parent of 2 sons. They're 7 and 8, and I've been trying to get them to eat healthy, eat a lot of fruit, and be a little healthier than their old man. And they love bananas. My boys love bananas. I can run to the grocery store and buy, 20 bananas in one night, and I'm not kidding. By the next morning, they're usually gone, and they go through those bananas like crazy. And I have very good intentions. I have very good intentions that I'm going to separate all those banana peels. I'm not going to let them go into the waste. I'm going to separate them. I'm going to let them, compost. I'm going to use them in the garden. I am going to do something really good and positive with them for the environment. And I've had those good intentions for about 7 or 8 years now in terms of their love of bananas. And unfortunately, there's a lot of excuses I can come up with. I'm too tired at the end of the day. I'll get to it next week. But I haven't started that compost pile, and I haven't started composting. Senate Bill 349 is a really, innovative idea that I've been approached with to try and make sure that it's easier to try and recycle food waste and let it be used by people who would use it. If you come to my house, you're not going to see much of a gorgeous garden. My wife and I had tried to garden and tried to plant vegetables, and for a while we got a little bit, but we weren't particularly endowed with green thumbs, and the garden didn't turn out that great. And right now the garden is a lot of sagebrush, and it's not so green. We wouldn't even have a place to put the compost right now if we used it. But I still feel guilty when I see all those banana peels go into the trash can. So that's kind of the thought behind Senate Bill 349, trying to make it easy for people to recycle food waste rather than having it end up in the trash bin and in the landfill. Other jurisdictions around the country are trying to do this, trying to make sure it's easy for people to separate that and to have that recycled and composted. Certainly before we had recycling of plastic and aluminum as convenient and easy as it is now, it was a challenge to do it. And we're very lucky that it is so easy and convenient now. I have been approached by a lot of stakeholders with some concerns about some of the definitions in the bill. And I'm sure you'll hear from them later on. And I want to work with them, and I want a bill that addresses those concerns. So I do take those seriously, and I do want to try to continue working with the stakeholders on those concerns. With your permission, Chair, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Angela O'Callahan, Jessica Clark, then Cody Witt, Dr. Andraki, Mr. DeLee, and then I'm happy to answer any questions.
Please proceed.
Hello, my name is Angela O'Callahan. I am Cooperative Extension Social Horticulture Specialist for Nevada, which means any way that plants affect people, I am involved with. One of my babies is trying to establish a more comprehensive composting approach for Southern Nevada. Because this is a large city with a number of people, but we haven't been recycling compostable waste. And we are doing a lot of work now with trying to improve our Southern Nevada agriculture. And unfortunately, if you've ever tried to, say, dig a hole or plant something here in Southern Nevada, you may have found it to be something of a challenge. Well, part of the challenge is because our soils are notoriously infertile. And being able to compost food waste will actually serve the growers by improving soils that we are trying to grow local food. So this is something that I think, and this is a specific kind of composting that is in this bill, which is a sealed anaerobic composting method, which means that it is sealed from the time it is garbage to the time it is a valuable soil amendment. So it is not going to be attractive to pests. It is not going to smell. It is going to be something that will actually be used. And because people who will be contributing to this are people who are residents, not necessarily farmers or even gardeners, but everybody does, as Senator Orenshaw said, we all do eat, and we eat fruits and vegetables, and we generate food waste. So if there's a way that we can, in this fairly small approach, limit or at least decrease some of the food waste that's going to the dump, for want of a better term, we can actually improve our carbon footprint, we can improve our soils, and we can include people in this process of food generation. This is not something that we don't usually think about. The rank and file, mom and dad who are living in an apartment, they are not necessarily going to be approached for being, big compost generators or users, but they can generate food garbage, which will then be able to be something that's going to be used in composting, that's going to be actually a soil amendment. And that's going to work wonders when we are looking at ways to improve local urban agriculture. Local agriculture is something that we're seeing more and more requests for proposals from the USDA on looking at real urban agriculture and peri-urban agriculture. It's not just the Midwest. Okay, we're not going to be growing wheat, but we can grow specialty crops, which are also the high value crops. So this is the sort of thing that will actually improve life for Southern Nevada in many ways, improving our soil, improving our access to fresh local vegetables, and helping farmers to improve their soils. Because heaven knows our soils are, as I usually say, they're a challenge. And that's kind of all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Chair, with your permission, Jessica Clark, I believe she's on the Zoom.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me? Hello? Hi, I'm here. Can anyone hear me?
Yep, please proceed.
Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Jessica. I'm from Star Seeds Urban Farm. We have a small microgreen and sprout farm in the city of Las Vegas. We also have a food trailer where we sell our greens along with other producers like TNT Ranch. We sell some of their eggs as well as their organic squash. I wanted to say thank you for allowing me to present our need for this. I'll start with presenting the plan that we are currently using and how this bill would help us make this so much better. Currently, we compost all of our farm waste, our produce waste, with a company called Viva La Compost. Viva La Compost started their journey about 10 years ago and started creating organic gardens and growing food. They now currently have 100 customers where they collect compost in the buckets that Angela was mentioning. Those buckets are then taken to the only compost facility in Las Vegas, which is Terra Firma Organics. They collect the compost along with other landscape compost from the valley. There's no local produce drop-off unless you go through Viva La Compost. And then that compost is, I believe it's there for, I want to say 3 to 6 months, where they turn the compost and then sell it to Star Nursery for planting gardens. What we would like to do and what we'd like to see is actually using our produce waste, our farm waste, our production waste, and seeing it go back to the farms, and then us being able to sell that produce. So instead of it going to terra firma, where that small portion of nutrient-dense waste kind of gets lost in the mix of the hundreds and thousands of pounds of palm tree and weed waste and other trimmings from landscaping waste. So you don't really see a lot of nutrients in the soil in that specific compost. And the composting method that was brought to our attention and that we would like to see, like Angela was saying, would be completely closed. There would be no pests, no flies, which is one of the reasons why terra firma is not able to accept waste like banana peels. So what we would like to do is see that produce waste, our nutrient-dense waste, being used to a local farm that could then create local organic food for us to sell. And so this would really complete the local sustainability cycle that we really feel that we need. We've asked a couple of people just today if they could just share their how their feelings about this bill, and if they approve of this and think this would be beneficial to us. And we actually just within, 6 hours, we received 40 comments on the bill. Just to read a couple, we have one from Lonnie. Please pass this bill. It is a positive step towards sustainability and environmentalism for our state. With all the food waste that is created, we must have measures to effectively reduce methane emissions and send these nutrients back to our soils as part of a healthy ecosystem. We also have, sorry, give me 1 second. We also have from Cassie Snow, this bill is a crucial step in the right direction to making composting more accessible to all members of our community and to a more sustainable future for all. We must push for continued landfill diversion and circular mindset. Compostable materials are valuable and should be looked at in that way moving forward. By diverting compostable materials to be made into usable and beneficial nutrient matter, we're able to reduce methane creation from landfills dramatically. We also have other farms in favor of this bill. Sundown Mushrooms, please pass this bill. We need to follow suit with the best caretaker. We are the best caretakers we can be. By passing this bill, it's a step toward leaving the land better, and it's the right thing to do. We have from Ellen Soy, as a major tourist city, we need to set an example of sustainability. We should be doing everything we can to create a sustainable lifestyle. As desert dwellers, we face the inevitable challenges caused by climate change. This is one step that we must make and implement to improve our chances of a more sustainable future. As a society, we need to reassess our notion of throwing things away. There's really no away as much out there, out of sight and out of mind. With this bill, we can confront many things. We can reduce the amount of waste that goes into landfill. We can reduce the greenhouse gases created when compostable materials break down anaerobically, and we can reduce the need for chemical fertilizers that have been shown to deplete the soil and cause desertification. The bill will also allow us to move forward and away from plastic packaging. We must continually reevaluate the norm that sales must always include single-use plastic packaging, which uses fossil fuels in its creation and pollutes the planet with its disposal. As a consumer, there's only so much that can be done on an individual level. I therefore implore you to pass this bill so that we may see a change on a larger scale, local level. And that's just some of the comments that we've received today. I know you guys have access to this. For our farm, we've tried to present a plan to the Clark County Health Department where we would be able to accept some of this nutrient dense, what considered waste. And we can't, unfortunately, because it is technically considered waste by definition. So this would really help us, again, add nutrition to our soils, create a local sustainable food cycle. It supports small businesses like mine, Viva La Compost, T&T Ranch. And I think I oversaid it. I don't think I'm missing anything.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Senator Orenshaw, who's the next presenter beyond that?
Thank you very much, Chair Donate. With your permission, Cody Witt from Full Circle Compost here in the Reno Sparks area.
Please proceed.
He was having some technical issues, but hopefully he's logged back in. If not, Dr. Stephen Andraki from EcoBloom Farm. Perhaps they're on the phone, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if he's having a technical issue. I know he was bounced out earlier, was told that he bounced back in, but.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Orenshaw. So I think they might be on the phone line. It looks like we are ready to go with questions at this time.
With your permission, I do have Mr. DeLee.
Oh, okay.
On the Zoom.
Mr. DeLee, please proceed.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present. I understand we have some technical issues. It'd be fantastic if we could get in. I just see a message coming from Dr. Andraki that he's having trouble getting unmuted. So perhaps I'll be very brief and then you could proceed to pick up Dr. Andraki. Not sure what the problem is with Cody Witt from Full Circle Organics. There's a lot we could learn from him, so I'm hoping we can get him online here. And I'll just begin by stating his concern, which is shared by a lot of people, and that is that we aim too low with the bill. We really did want to incorporate a lot more materials than just a very narrow definition. Hopefully we'll get him online and he can talk about that. But the reason we did that is because we wanted to not upset the apple cart, and we may have upset the apple cart anyway. So if we're going to go look at some more stuff, then maybe we'll just broaden that beyond this, which is the new concept. It's new here. I'll talk just a few minutes about what this is because we adopted the regulation that was in print from Ohio and coming up with the language. And it's technically known as bokashi fermentation. So it's technically not composting, but that's what everybody understands it. And I'm no expert at that. I'm not sure what an expert I am in anything, but this is something that is ideally suited to what Veronica's business model and what Veronica and Jessica were trying to do with their proposal to Clark County, because it is an anaerobic process. It doesn't produce the methane and carbon dioxide that traditional composting does produce. And you don't need a lot of it because you don't need to raise the temperatures to kill off the pathogens. It's an acidic process. It's acidic anaerobic fermentation. And it's already documented worldwide. It's developed in East Asia, Korea, and Japan, but it's becoming more popular here. You can look at websites for City of Tucson, and they promote it heavily, as well as a lot of other jurisdictions. And as I mentioned, our code language comes from Ohio, so it's pretty much word for word in the first section of the bill. We've got targets that we're trying to meet throughout our state, from national targets from the EPA to try to reduce the food waste by 50% by 2030. There's a lot of states that are well ahead of us, such as California, Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, Vermont, et cetera, and trying to bring policy towards that. A lot of jurisdictions already collect compost materials. We're not really there yet where we need to be, especially on the residential side, especially in Southern Nevada. And a lot of that is we just have issues. But this is one way that we can let businesses, small businesses, in fact, use innovative ways to get the job done for us right at the residential level and go directly to the farm. We've heard a lot on the producer side of farm to table and connecting the know your farmer, know your food. Well, this is kind of the other end of that. This is the farmer actually needs the kitchen waste in order to benefit the soil, as Dr. O'Callahan said. So I won't repeat a lot of that. I just want to reiterate that we have a lot of standards at the farm level, and that's built into the statute here. What we propose to amend is that this is going to be brought to a farm. This is not going to go on a piece of ground somewhere and just sit there and rot. This is going to be brought to a farm. We have the Food Safety Modernization Act, federal level, that guides a lot of what needs to be done with compostable materials, which this would be defined as. We also have, for a lot of the organic producers, we have the National Organics Program, which is specified here in this text. All of that goes into detail about safety, and we're worried about food safety and what goes on in that. So we want to hit all of the national goals as well as our state goals that we've put in the statute, and AGR 3 covers. I know we talked about that earlier. In terms of increasing our carbon sequestration, this is the best way to do it. So I encourage your support. I'm hoping we can get back to Dr. Andraki and Cody Witt. I'll just touch briefly on the later section of the bill because I don't think the other presenters are. There's some concerns about farmers markets and the regulations, and that maybe it's going a little too far. So we have that in there, but I think most of the discussion today is actually about opening up the field to go directly from the kitchens to the farms and make sure that's done in a way that is safe. We already have the regulations for that, and as inclusive and as democratic and widespread as possible. And we look forward to working with anybody that has any interest in this and changing the language if necessary to be as inclusive as possible, and make this work for everybody. So thank you, and I'll stand ready for questions if needed.
Thank you, Mr. Dilly. Senator Orenshaw, you have one last presenter.
Yes, Chair, with your indulgence, Cody Witt from Full Circle Organics, actually in Gardnerville, is here. Thank you, Mr. Witt. Thank you, Chair.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much. Cody Witt, representing actually Full Circle Compost, Nevada Organics up in Carson City, Nevada, and actually Terra Firma Organics down in Las Vegas as well. Our owner is a co-owner in both facilities. Just some brief history on who we are. Two different operations, but Nevada Organics, Full Circle Compost, who is me, Cody Witt. We are the longest running compost site in the state. We've been operating for the last 24 years. And in 2020 alone, we processed over 87,000 cubic yards of material and kept them out of the landfill. Specific to carbon sequestration, that's the equivalent of pulling 30,000 cars off of the road annually through carbon sequestration. So that's the conversion of the organic materials, keeping them out of the landfill, not off-gassing, and turning them into compost that we can then put into the agricultural setting to grow more plants and awesome food. So Full Circle's mission from the beginning moving forward is the concept and idea of taking materials that would normally go to the landfill, convert them into compost that can then add organic matter, nutrition, and biology to poor Nevada soils to increase the overall soil health and fertility of the soil, which then in turn can increase nutrient density. Of those 87,000 cubic yards, that's a hard number to think of. So just think of if you're in Vegas or in Reno, either the Wolfpack or the UNLV stadium full 41 feet high worth of material. It's a lot of material we keep out of landfill, but that is a blend of fire prevention materials, yard waste, agricultural waste, soils, excavation materials, and food waste. I'm going to speak in support of the movement of the composting effort. We've been working for 24 years in a very difficult environment. We pioneered some of the first composting efforts ever in the state of Nevada, and now some of the largest residential programs are running through Full Circle up here in northern Nevada, and there's also very large programs in Las Vegas. However, composting is a lot more than very specific definitions. And so as Michael DeLee had already indicated, this is not support or against or for. It's more of just the information so everybody can make an informed decision. In the composting process, food waste is a nitrogen cycle. It's a nitrogen factor. And you have to have 3 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. So a lot of the times we're on the search for carbon sources to blend with food waste. The Bokashi definition, which is a great program used in Japan, there's successful case studies and many successful companies that are using Bokashi, but it's extremely small scale. So with this definition and where it is located within a solid waste bill, you're opening up new avenues for composting, but it needs to include every stakeholder that's out there. Composters, agriculturalists, waste haulers, those that are already doing it and those that want to start doing it to make progressive composting movements in the future. And so we just want to make sure that the specific definitions are reviewed to include items that might be left out, number one, include composting methodology that's currently not even used locally. Could it be used? Yes, of course it could. But right now, for example, I'm taking 30 tons of food waste a week from commercial clients and also residential clients in a very similar program where bicyclists drive around Reno and collect people's residential food waste. And guess where it comes? It comes to here, to Full Circle. We turn it into compost and it goes back to community gardens. We sell it. It goes to agriculturalists. It goes all over. But it just needs to be defined correctly to include all of composting, because many times I think that we feel composting might be simple, but the composting industry is very dynamic and very large. To process the amount of materials that we process, it requires a lot of capital, and it's a very low profit margin business that we're in. We do it mainly out of the goodness of our heart for Mother Nature. And it's very complicated, especially in the world of waste. And so with that, there needs to be efficient waste collection. If you open it up and people start handling waste inappropriately, which this bill in the narrow definition is handling a lot of that, we just need to make sure that there's no loopholes that would allow for inefficient handling of food waste, for example. Food waste is our most contaminated and hard to compost material that we collect. Agricultural waste, yard waste, manures, fire prevention materials from Lake Tahoe, those are much easier. Food waste comes with pathogens, it comes with a processing necessity, and it comes with a lot of oversight. So even though Michael had indicated that there are very many rules and regulations in place, there are not very many governing bodies watching those. Composters, for example, myself, I am a permitted compost site that is allowed to take specific feedstocks with specific amounts of materials. I have annual regulations or annual permits that I have to keep going. I have to sample every single batch of compost that comes out. Locally, we saw compost being taken from residents that was turned into food waste that had 5 times the E. coli level that was being then distributed. We need to watch for those because a couple of years ago, we all couldn't have lettuce for Thanksgiving, and that was because of issues within the Food Safety Modernization Act, which Michael DeLee also mentioned. I'm rambling a little bit, but there's just a lot to talk about because composting is so big. Anytime anybody would like to come see a composting site, you guys can check us out. The other part of this that I would just like to briefly touch on is that the opening of Nevada is very far behind in the world of composting. We've been doing our part with no regulation whatsoever. We want to see progressive composting measures happen. We want to see new and improved systems for waste and regulations. We just want to see it come together collaboratively with as many stakeholders as possible to make sure we do it right the first time. For example, here in Carson City, a new regulation was put in place to do residential yard waste recycling. We are the fortunate beneficiaries of getting the material. However, we spend huge amounts of money and capital sorting materials to try to convert items into beneficial end products to go back into our community. And so before jumping all in and approving something, it needs to be looked at from a large scope of where and how it goes. And then when it comes to going back to the farmers, 100% in support of farmers being able to create their own sustainable feedstocks to increase nutrient density of food for us to eat. However, it just needs to be done under a full regulatory environment that all materials going to certain people and how it gets there is understood. And then lastly, the only thing that I would like to say up here in Northern Nevada is that the amount of time that we've put to implement our current strategies, we just want to be connected to the discussion in Southern Nevada because it's a little different up here. We've had a lot more progressive movement forward in Northern Nevada with larger scale recycling programs using composting. And we're happy to share that information with Southern Nevada to tie this all together.
Thank you so much, Mr. Witt, for your presentation. I think we're ready to move to questions just from time constraints. So if we have Senator Hansen who has a question.
I'll make it quick. Thanks, Chair. Well, I'll tell you one thing, composting's changed a lot. I remember when I was a Boy Scout, we piled up our grass clippings and put potato peels and all that in, and that was my understanding of compost. Mr. Witt, your explanation of composting was well beyond my scope of understanding. My question really boils down to this. Aren't there currently contracts and things with garbage waste haulers and things like that where they're already picking up this stuff? And when they do that, do they have their own compost areas? When I take stuff to the dump or whatever, they have all sorts of like segregated sections. And one of them, it seems to me, was things like this. So I'm just kind of curious, does this in any way step on anybody's toes who are currently collecting this stuff? Does it violate any contractual agreements or anything like that? That's for anybody that testified. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. To you and through you to Senator Hansen. I've actually, this bill dropped last Wednesday, and I appreciate some of the representatives from Waste Management and CNS Waste and Republic Services taking a lot of time to talk to me, and I believe they're going to speak later on the bill in opposition, and I do want to reach out to them as they reached out to me and try to work on trying to get the language right here. Certainly my experience coming from the southern part of the state is that, if I want to collect all my banana peels, my apple cores, and everything else that's organic food waste, and I want to compost it, I can do it. But in the situation I explained to you earlier, where I'd like to collect it all, but I just don't have the get up and go to do that. I think my options, at least in my part of the state, are pretty limited in terms of trying to have something composted where it's going to be turned into something that would go to agriculture, not into the food waste. But I'm just speaking, that's what I've learned, and there might be other experts with more information. I know that some of the waste companies will speak later.
Thank you, Senator Orenshaw. Any other questions? Let's do Vice Chair Scheibel, and then we'll do Senator Goicoechea after.
Thank you so much. The only bill I love better than a bill that makes recycling easier is a bill that makes recycling mandatory. So I just wanted to better understand what it is that if there's any part of the bill that would require municipalities or jurisdictions, companies to develop these policies and develop a plan for composting, or if it simply removes a barrier that currently exists in the way of health and safety codes.
And to you and through you, Chair, to the Vice Chair, as I understand the bill, the way it came out of drafting, it removes barriers to allow this to happen. And if I'm misunderstanding, if any of the experts want to jump in, please feel free to jump in. Mr. DeLee or Dr. O'Callahan, Mr. Witt, we do have Dr. Andraki, but he's on the phone and will speak later.
For what it's worth, that is how I'm reading it as well. I just wanted to confirm that we were reading it the same way, and that was the intent of the bill. But it looks like Ms. O'Callahan has a contribution.
Yes. In Southern Nevada, we don't have a food waste recycling outside of what we're doing with the recyclables, but not food, not agricultural, not organic waste. We don't have a separate stream for that down here in the South. We have, as you said, there's a number of companies that are working with composting in the South, but we do not have anything through, say, Republic, where we're able to clean up our food waste or organic. I mean, not organic in the sense of organic growing, but organic in the sense of it having been alive. Okay, so we don't have that at this moment. And I think that one of the things that what Cody Witt was saying, and indeed, if we're going to get to a large scale program, we'll definitely be incredibly careful about potential pathogens. But for this is a very small approach. And this is sort of like the preparation to a pilot, almost, is how I've been thinking about this bill. But it will permit us, as I say, to get the people of Southern Nevada, because I know that in the North, people have been doing more. There's been more of I hate to say community, but down here, people are still inventing a lot of community. And when I first got here 20 years ago, I was told, well, two things. I was hired as a horticulturist by the University of Nevada, and I was hired and I was told, number one, you can't grow anything in Southern Nevada. And number two, you can't compost in Southern Nevada. So that's where I am. So it's not to contradict anything that Cody Witt said. It's simply that this is a very small, not garden variety, but it's a small project that's going to make a world of difference in terms of inclusion, including people in our part of the world.
Thank you so much, Dr. O'Callaghan. Senator Orenshaw, I think that answers the question, so we can proceed to Senator Goycochea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. This compost, after it is, in fact, the barrels, they can be delivered promptly to a person who holds a certificate as an actual producer of farm products. Who's going to do that certification?
Mr. Chair, to you and through you to Senator Goycochea, that definition relies on that's in Chapter 444, which is our solid waste statute, but it refers to Chapter 576. And I apologize, I should have that in front of me. I will get that for you right now. I apologize that I don't have that citation in front of me, but.
I see the citation in statute. I can pull it up too, but I would just, again, are we going to have the Department of Ag or somebody out there certifying that you're a farmer now?
Senator Orenshaw, we also have legal counsel, Mr. Amber, who can chime in, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair, and I will get that citation in just one sec. Thank you.
Mr. Amber, please proceed.
Alan Ambrin for the record. Senator, so the citation is 576, 128. Basically, that requires the State Department of Agriculture to adopt regulations that requires certain persons who are actual producers of certain farm products to obtain certification as an actual producer of farm products.
Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Any other last minute questions from the committee members before we proceed to testimony? I don't see any. All right. Let's go ahead and proceed to testimony. As a reminder, we will be limiting all testifiers to 2 minutes each for SB 349. Testifiers are encouraged to summarize their positions and submit more comprehensive testimony in writing. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to provide support testimony for SB 349?
Thank you so much, Chair. To testify in support on Senate Bill 349, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits, 155. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christy Cabrera, CHRISTI CABRERA, and I'm the Policy and Advocacy Director for the Nevada Conservation League. The food system contributes 20 to 30% of global climate pollution. We can reduce that pollution by expanding urban agriculture, farm-to-consumer sales, and composting. Around 40% of municipal solid waste is compostable, but is often thrown in the trash. It then ends up in landfills and emits greenhouse gas emissions. Expanding composting in our state can significantly cut down on the amount of trash in landfills, decrease greenhouse gas emission, enrich soil with nutrients, and reduce the need for fertilizers and pesticides. This bill will also allow produce at farmers markets to be sold without packaging, which will reduce waste and reduce costs for local farmers. Farmers markets increase access to local healthy food while supporting local businesses and can reduce food miles. We believe SB 349 has many benefits to our environment, and we urge the committee's support. Thank you.
We are currently on support testimony on Senate Bill 349. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits, 882, please press star 6 now to unmute. Thank you, caller with the last three digits, 882. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Stephen, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, Andraki, A-N-D-R-A-C-K-I. I'm a medical doctor. I work in Pahrump. I've been in Las Vegas, Pahrump since 1989. My wife and I also operate a small-scale organic farm. We believe in holistic and renewable resources. We have been struggling with this economy, COVID, with production, food production, and we see the benefit for continuing to supply organic produce to the Las Vegas market, both to consumers, CSA members, and to restaurants. The opportunity to collect and compost and to reuse the materials that are discarded is a great value to us as we practice organic practices, and that we want to continue. How we do this, I don't know. I don't know how it's collected, but that's a business model plan. In terms of biology, in terms of pathogens, E. coli, I'll go toe-to-toe with any microbiologist concerning these issues because I treat these pathogens and well aware of them and want to prevent them from my farm. I want to prevent smells, rodents, pathogens from anything in our produce which would affect our business. And I feel that this is a safe and viable way that we need to move to make this both not only the area, the Las Vegas, Nevada, but the world better by practicing sustainable organic farming practices. We will lead the model for sustainability. We hope others will follow with this. This needs to be done. We need to have sustainable practices. We need to have compost, and we need to have return on what we take into Las Vegas to make this all happen. And it's my pleasure to support that this bill be passed not only for large businesses, but for small businesses and all the people who wish to take part in eating fresh and organic produce. Thank you.
Once again, we are currently on support testimony on Senate Bill 349. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you, VPS. Is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition?
Thank you so much, Chair. To testify in opposition on Senate Bill 349, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits, 903, Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Lazovich. That is Lazovich, as in Victor, ICH, and I am representing Republic Services. First of all, we want to thank Senator Orenshaw for taking the time to talk with us about SB 349, but as he mentioned a little bit earlier in his testimony, we still remain opposed to the bill. Republic Services has franchise agreements with Clark County, City of Las Vegas, City of North Las Vegas, and the City of Henderson. These agreements are negotiated and based upon what is included in the collection, transportation, disposal of solid waste. Solid waste is a defined term that SB 349 would attempt to change. Republic Services employs over 1,200 people to service these local contracts. Given our franchise agreements, we cannot support any changes to the definition of solid waste, which would take solid waste that is expressly part of our franchise agreement and give it to another commercial operation. One thing I think is important to point out is there's an assumption that all of the organic waste or processable waste just goes into our landfill. And while it's true that we need some of that waste to go into our landfill to keep our landfill operating and have the lifespan that it needs to have, you may not know, but Republic Services also uses that type of material to create methane gas. We do that out in our Apex landfill. We then clean the methane gas and turn it into renewable energy. So we are playing our part to make sure that we are trying to do things to help the environment and do things that will reuse when we can. But any change to the definition is in direct conflict with our franchise agreements and will have negative impacts to our customers, our landfill, our employees, and ultimately our local government partners. Thank you very much.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 157. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chairman Donate, members of the committee. For the record, I am Brian Northam, Northam. I'm the Environmental Health Supervisor of Permanent Disposal Facilities Program at Southern Nevada Health District. The Southern Nevada Health District appreciates the goals of the bill to increase diversion of food waste from the landfills and decrease the amount of greenhouse gas emissions generated from landfills. The goals align with state goals regarding sustainable materials management. While SNHD continues to review the bill, our initial review finds that this change to Section 1 to exempt compostable materials from the definition of solid waste is not necessary. The operations described by the proposed bill are allowed under existing solid waste regulations with a permit. SNHD currently permits a compost plant within Clark County. That permitted facility previously operated in a manner described by this bill, collecting compostable waste in Clark County, and then transferring those waste to a compost plant outside the county. That operation was conducted in a safe and sanitary manner in Clark County with a solid waste management permit. That is why we don't think the proposed exemption from solid waste is necessary. This concludes my testimony, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 139. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Chair Donate and committee members. Misty Grimmer, Grimmer, with the Ferraro Group representing Waste Management. We did have a conversation this morning with Senator Orenshaw and appreciate his time and his goal of making it easier for households to do composting. However, we are currently in opposition to SB 349 because of the effect this would have on our franchise agreements. There is currently nothing in law or in our franchise agreements that prevents a homeowner from doing composting. I do composting at my home and attempt to garden in the Las Vegas heat. Despite having listened to Dr. O'Callahan for many years, it is still quite a challenge, even with all of her advice. For the areas waste management serves, the availability of separate food waste collection varies, in large part based on if there is a processing facility to bring the food waste to. In the Reno area, our franchises do have the flexibility that if the local government decides to move towards providing a separate collection of food waste, we can work with them to do that. It's important to note, though, that a change such as that would likely require a rate increase to all customers. In Carson City, we do have the separate collection of food waste as part of our franchise if the customer chooses, and there is a processing facility in Carson that we take the waste to. The challenge in this bill comes from changing the definition of waste in the statute that will affect our franchise agreements with local governments. Those are arduous agreements to come to, but each of them is customized to meet the needs of the community served, and we would encourage the legislature to maintain that local control. Thank you for your time.
Once again, we are currently on opposition testimony on Senate Bill 349. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in opposition, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no more callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you so much. BPS, is there anyone wishing to provide testimony in neutral on SB 349?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on Senate Bill 349, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 843. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, my name is Greg Lovato, G-R-E-G-L-O-V as in Victor, A-T-O. For the record, Administrator of the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection, testifying neutral on SB 349. We appreciate the goals of the bill to increase reuse of food scraps and decrease the amount in edible landfills, which can contribute to statewide greenhouse gas emissions. These align with the overall goals of NDEP's Sustainable Materials Management Program and the State Climate Strategy. Under NRS 444 and 444A, NDEP administers the solid waste management and recycling program statewide, along with our partner agencies, the Southern Nevada Health District and Washoe County Health District. Together, we regulate the solid waste management of the state, as also provided for under the Federal Resource Conservation and Recovery Act solid waste program. Similar to Southern Nevada Health District, our review indicates that the proposed change in Section 1 to exempt compostable materials from the statutory definition of solid waste is not necessary to allow the proposed reuse of these materials. It is our understanding that solid waste is not defined solely by its characteristics, but if the owner treats it as refuse in that it has been discarded, abandoned, or placed into a waste container. We are not familiar with the specific discussion and plan that Starseed Urban Farm presented to Southern Nevada Health District and look forward to learning more. We also look forward to understanding how a program like this has worked in other states and working with the bill sponsor to address our question about the proposed exemption and why it is necessary. We also appreciate Mr. Witt's suggestion that a larger discussion among stakeholders will better support and prepare Nevada to make progress on managing food scraps. That concludes my testimony. Thank you.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 485. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Chair Donate and committee members, Mackenzie Warren with McDonald Carano, testifying on behalf of CNS Waste Solutions. Chair, with your permission, I intended to call in on the opposition and ended up on neutral. May I submit this testimony in opposition?
Please proceed.
Thank you. CNS Waste Solutions is an independently owned family of waste collection and recycling operating throughout Nye County in Pahrump, Beatty, Amargosa, and Inyo County. We stand in opposition to Senate Bill 349, but not without the acknowledgement of bill sponsor Senator Orenshaw for the many conversations that have occurred over the last week and 24 hours. Vice Chair Scheibel, you'll be pleased to know that CNS brought the first sustainable recycling program to rural Nevada. Connecting farms directly with consumers is a concept we support. We support our customers and neighbors composting at home. However, SB 349 seeks to change the definition of solid waste, which is in direct violation of our franchise agreements within Nye. These franchise agreements were thoughtfully negotiated and tailored to fit the needs of the community and even more critically adhere to the obligations under NRS 444, the statute governing solid waste. Substantial investment and infrastructure also accompany these franchise agreements. SB 349 would undermine these local contracts, and we believe the local jurisdictions are best positioned to customize waste solutions for their community's needs. Carving out compostable material from the solid waste definition would allow a potentially foreign, unlicensed, and unregulated commercial operator to haul this material, in turn charging customers and diverting the waste stream without any oversight or regulatory authorization. The waste and recycling business is one that is highly regulated and for good reason, and this proposal would effectively eliminate a local government's ability to manage its own waste. Thank you very much.
Once again, we are currently on neutral testimony on Senate Bill 349. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in neutral, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no additional callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you so much, BPS. Last minute remarks from Senator Orenshaw before we close this hearing.
Chair Donate, Vice Chair Scheibel, members of the committee, thank you so much for taking the time to hear both measures. On Senate Bill 349, I believe this bill has so much potential and can really increase recycling and composting of food waste here in Nevada. I respect the position of all the stakeholders. Our trash collectors have been the frontline workers during the pandemic and have gone above and beyond to make sure that we were protected back when everything shut down and people were scared to leave their homes. I completely respect what they do to keep us safe and protect us. And I believe that there is a way to increase recycling and composting of food waste so that it can be used in agriculture. And I want to work with those companies. And I believe that there's common ground we can find. I want to certainly thank Dr. O'Callahan and Mr. DeLee and everyone else who presented, and Cody Witt and Dr. Andraki, Jessica Clark. And I hope that we can find some common ground. I believe this is important legislation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator, for helping us present these two bills, and we look forward to seeing you on Thursday. So I will go ahead and close the hearing on SB 349. Again, the committee will not be taking any action on this bill today, but it may bring it back for a future work session. Let's go ahead and proceed to public comment before we close out. I will now go ahead and call for public comment. Please remember to limit your comments to 2 minutes. BPS staff, is there any public comment?
Thank you so much, Chair. We are currently on public comment. If you have recently joined the call and would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers for public comment at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, BPS. Is there any last minute comments from any of the committee members? I know this is a pretty long meeting, so just want to give you the chance to say anything before we close out. I don't see anything. All right. Our next meeting is on Thursday, April 1st, and we will be returning to our regular time at 3:30 p.m. Thank you so much to the committee members and to Senator Orenshaw for helping us present today. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.